Hi there, welcome to the channel. Today's topic is about my love-hate relationship with bullet journaling. So basically it's why I loved it, but why I also gave it up. I bullet journaled for 7 years and this is my very first year away from the method. It's been about 6 months or coming up 7 months, so I feel like I've had a little bit of time to reflect. So I didn't discover it the same way many other people did. I discovered it through this book when I found it at the airport in Auckland when I was travelling to Australia for a holiday. It gave me a really good start on what bullet journaling was, and then I went to the internet to find out a little bit more about it. And then many years later, Ryder Carroll, who is the actual inventor of the bullet journal method, wrote his own book. I'm not going to go into detail about the method. There are many videos out there that will explain the bullet journal method in great detail. So in brief, instead of having a notebook with pre-printed pages with a calendar, you set each page up as you go. You start with your whole year, which is called a future log. Then you set up your months, your weeks, and your days at a time as you reach them, rather than having them all printed at the beginning of the year. As well as calendar pages, you can include collections, which is anything else that isn't part of your calendar. So it's things like a list of books to read, projects to start, your goals, or your friends' birthdays, whatever it is you need. And the index at the front ties it all together. So I started with a pen very similar to this one and this Look Term 1917 notebook. This was the trending notebook at the time and it still very much is. And it was the only one that actually had dot grid paper that I could find at the time. Everywhere you turn, you'll find a notebook with dot grid paper now, but at the time there were very, very few. Also, I was on holiday, so I didn't need an excuse to spend money on a bit of a zhuzhed up notebook. But I could have picked up any notebook and gotten started with that before committing to anything more substantial. And if you are unsure about this method and whether you want to try it long term, I recommend that. I love that bullet journal method is super adaptable. You can follow the method pretty much as set out by Ryder Carroll, where you have one pen, one notebook, minimal setup, no embellishment, and you just set up each page as you need it. Or you can set up pages in advance and add colour and decoration to your heart's content. It's whatever suits you. I started with the original method. I always follow the recipe exactly as set out the first time through, and it's no different here. But then I started adapting. I very quickly found in this first year super frustrating having similarly themed pages scattered throughout the journal. So here I have my books read 2018 volume 1. Then I have volume 2 down here on page 108, and that goes to July. And then I've got the volume 3 over here on page 177. And even finding these pages for this video was an exercise in frustration. So what I started doing the following year was setting up a month at a time, a whole lot of pages. So I'd have my monthly spread over here. I would do a photo of the month here. This is my sleep tracker where I keep track of my hours of sleep, hours in bed and the quality. Then I would do a little to be read list of books. I'd do a little review of the books that I'd read. Then it goes into a personal journaling section, and then I have my week. So each week it has an Alistair method with some tasks, and then it has some general tasks. Again, some more personal journaling, and then the rest of the books that I read that month. Then we go into July, and it's the same setup for July. Again, the month setup, photo of the month, sleep tracker. Look at my beautiful lettering. Oh my god. My to be read list, and then this is where I started highlighting what I'd read, some goals, and again into the weeklies, the same setup as before. My books read, so the same setup month after month for pretty much the entire year. So one of its big advantages is that it's an open-ended system. You have as much room as you need for whatever purpose you need it for. This is a 250-page notebook, so there's plenty of room for what you need it for, and if you need more, you just get another notebook and you just start that on the next page. So some of those things that make the Bujo great were really starting to snot my socks, as my sister would say. As I've already touched on, constantly having to flip through the notebook to find certain pages was getting really annoying. And the index wasn't really helping much, to the point where I just stopped keeping it. It was almost annoying having to find your item in the index as having to find the page itself. I would write things like book quotes down one year and go to quite a lot of effort to write down my favourite quotes from particular books. But once this year is up, this gets put on the shelf and I don't look at it again, and it's only just going through them again to find some material for this video that I refound those book quotes and could have a read and enjoy them. I was also, as you can tell from the areas that I've closed off here, I was starting to get really uncomfortable carrying around my personal journal along with everything else in my everyday carry. I recently lost my wallet and I looked everywhere for it. Finally, I found it in the exact same pocket that I always put it in 5 days later. Another time, I couldn't find my coaching diary and I found that a week later rolled up in the pocket of the tent where I'd left it. So I am clearly not the person who should have her personal thoughts in the notebook she carries around every single day. Although I have to say, nothing in it is that, nothing I write in it is really that interesting. It's not like I've got juicy celebrity gossip, but still, it's my life. So a couple of times while I was bullet journaling, I switched to an Archer and Olive. And this is the last bullet journal that I used last year. Archer and Olives became very much the trending notebook. They have outstanding quality. Their paper is 120 GSM. It's white. They come in a range of sizes, a range of different textures for the covers, different colours. And if you have a look at the ends here, this was my everyday carry last year, and they take a serious amount of thrashing in the nightmare that is my handbag, and it's held up beautifully. But my biggest problem is that this particular size and type only has 120 pages, and that limits how much spare space is left for anything. So coming from a 250 page lectern, it was quite a shock when I first moved into an Archer and Olive and suddenly realised that if I wasn't careful, I was going to run out of pages. And I didn't really like being boxed in like that. So I never had a year where I used all 250 pages. So clearly that was the exact right amount of space for me. But with 120 pages, that's 10 pages per month. I knew that I was probably very easily going to run out of room if I wasn't careful. And it just felt to me like a lot of the spontaneity of the method was gone because of it. But what finally tipped me over and made me want to go to another method was having to set up these pages every single month, month after month. And obviously, I'm also time tracking here, so there's even more time going into the journaling. And it just started to get too much. There is an amazing beauty in a blank notebook unless you're tired and you're resentful and you don't really have the time to spend drawing and dating yet another weekly, when you can just buy a diary with dates pre-printed for the whole year. So about August of 2024, I'd had enough. I set up the spreads for the rest of the year and I started looking at printed planners. So for now, I've moved away from the bullet journaling from that one book system. I've split what was once all contained in my bullet journal into different notebooks. So I have a Franken planner for my time and task management, I have a Sterling Ink Common planner for my personal diary, and I have an Archer and Olive for my reading journal. If you've seen my recent video on my mid-year lineup, you'll see how I use all of these books. That also allows me to select a notebook that's fit for each purpose, and I can adapt my journaling style to suit, rather than having just one single book that I have for everything, and it may not suit all of those styles. It also keeps my time and task management away from my hobby notebooks, and it keeps my personal journal at home safe, where I know it's not going to fall out of my handbag or get left behind in a work pool car. So to sum up, bullet journaling was absolutely fantastic. One book system is excellent, and I did it for 7 years and I loved most of it. Right now, it just doesn't suit me and I wanted to try something different. But I think it will likely suit me again sometime in the future, and when that comes, I will be more than happy to move back into a bullet journaling system. So I hope these insights have helped you out. Have a great week, and I'll see you next video.